Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the 8-Bit Adventures podcast. We're here to bring you the latest and greatest geeky news of the week. I am your host, Sean Hayes, and, so we've got a lot of Pokemon and D&D news this week, a couple of big releases. We're going to be talking about that. But we do have some other stuff. Some pretty interesting news this week. So hope everyone has been having a good time as we cross over, say goodbye to summer, and say hello to spooky, scary skeleton season. So yeah, I hope everyone had a wonderful Earth, Wind, and Fire Day yesterday. For those that are watching this live, obviously, if you're listening to the audio version, that was 2 days ago. So yeah, why don't we get right into it? So first up, let's do some quickfire news. All right, so get my slides ready. All right, first up, the IATSE, which stands for the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees, which also covers TV and film production, and namely like production crews. So this doesn't necessarily apply to actors. It's like crews. Has called for a strike authorization vote if there is an agency of film and TV producers, which represent the studios, fail to produce an agreement on a new contract that addresses, I'm going to sum this up with problematic work practices. They run the whole gamut of like unsafe working environments, unsafe working hours, not being allowed to take lunch breaks, not being paid adequately, a whole slew of problems that have kind of come about so the film studios are claiming as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. The IATSE has countered with the fact that with everything going to streaming services, there may be a little bit of obfuscation going on as to whether there is some amount of distress, financial distress. So this doesn't necessarily mean that they will strike, but this is a call for a vote to have the authorization to strike, right? So this is a negotiating tactic, but it's essentially to the having the threat to strike, if that makes sense. So if you're part of a union, you have to like have a form, like you can't just decide to strike. You have to like essentially have the union decide and formally decide like we're going to strike. Negotiations have fallen through. Obviously the studios are not happy about this. These shots have been fired back and forth. If the vote goes through and they do end up deciding to strike, this would be monumental. It would effectively shut down the whole entertainment industry. It would shut down like television and film and theater production for all parties involved. So this involves things like Disney, Netflix, CBS, NBC, ABC, Fox. It's pretty much anybody that runs film crews and like has a streaming service at this point, which is everybody. So it affects like the entire industry. A strike of that magnitude has not happened since World War II. To give some context as to how long it's been since like a strike like this actually happened. So, and I mean, there's the thing. It's level of pay, it's health benefits, it's hours, defined lunch breaks, and like to make sure that people actually get them. I mean, they're not revolutionary things. You know, part of the impetus has been like a number of employees of production crews have been falling asleep at the wheel and getting into accidents, like, you know, within the past week. So this is a safety concern. So I mean, I'm also pro union, so I mean, yeah, that this is kind of a no brainer to me. But we'll see. Let's hope that negotiation does not end up having to go to a strike. I don't think it will, because I think if they do end up going on strike, like it essentially, like, because it cancels everything, like everything grinds to a halt. So, and that's very costly. So, yeah, we'll see as far as how the strike authorization vote goes. Next up, D&D Celebration 2021 is going to be a weekend event from September 23rd through September 26th. So if you're listening to this live or as soon as the podcast drops on audio or on podcast platforms, that would be this weekend. Is a weekend event of live streams and presentations to celebrate the launch of Wild Beyond the Witchlight, and also to showcase some of the upcoming products of Strixhaven and Fizban's Treasury of Dragons. And there is a presentation about like the future of D&D. So whether that's like things that they're, you know, possible projects coming up or design initiatives, or what would be really nice is to see what exactly is Wizards doing to address a lot of the concerns of its treatment of minority creators and minority employees. So, you know, just the usual stuff. But that'll be this weekend. It'll be streamed on Twitch. VODs will be up later. But all of the adventures are going to focus on Wild Beyond the Witchlight, which released this week. And I'm going to talk about that in our deep dive. So this is the Feywild adventure that also has ties to Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. So it'll be interesting to see that. It looks like there's a wide variety of different types of games being done. The schedule is up on the Dungeons & Dragons website, so wizards.com/DND. All right, next up, revamp. So Zynga, you remember Zynga, folks? They used to make games, they used to make really terrible Facebook games like Farmville. They are releasing an Among Us style, the genre is apparently social manipulation games. For Snapchat's game platform. Snapchat apparently has games. I feel like this is just a circuitous thing of like social media platforms deciding like, hey, you know what would be great is if we had games. Like they get up to a point where like they find success, they get up to a point of growth, and then they're like, oh no, we're not growing anymore because this is late stage capitalism. And then they're like, we need to grow more. What do? Let's do games. And then they start like launching games and everything. And it seems to be Zynga's at the heart of all this. So yeah, this is going to be, it's vampire hunters. So one or two people or whatever are secretly vampires, and the rest, and the goal is to figure out who's the vampires. So again, it's in the style Among Us, you know, Werewolf, I think it's Werewolf. There's a card, you know, sort of a cardboard party game that's the similar, like One Night Werewolf or something like that. That, at least that's the version I have. Where it's essentially somebody is an imposter and your goal is to find them through, you know, whatever means are available in the game. So we'll see. I included this because I didn't realize Snapchat had a games platform. So that's weird to me. I don't think it'll be enough to get me to start using Snapchat, but I don't know, more power to you if you use the platform and this suddenly makes you want to start playing Zynga games again. Next up, speaking of mobile games, the Pokemon Company is working on a mobile and PC game to replace its current one. So there is currently a Pokemon trading card game that is available on browsers. This is intended to replace that and kind of serve the same niches like Magic the Gathering Arena. What this will do is it'll be on mobile and, you know, on PC. I think in the browser. But if not, it might, I don't know. I'm not sure how the PC version is going to work. But it will still have the feature of physical cards come with a code that you can scan and then upload them to your digital collection, and they will still keep that feature that exists. So it exists in the current game that they have. And they're going to keep that. So, like, they're not doing away with any of the physical codes and everything. So that way, like, if you buy a real card, you get a digital card to go with it. Looks like it will also have, quote-unquote microtransactions, in that you will be able to buy digital cards. You will also be able to, much like Hearthstone and I presume Arena, you will be able to buy cards with, like, in-game currencies so that you don't actually have to spend any money on solely digital goods. But they'll also include, I don't know, like, trainer outfits and things like that. So, you know, cosmetic stuff. But yeah, I like I do like the physical goods come with a code that gives you the digital version as well. Now, the reason why this works is because this is coming from the Pokemon Company. And the Pokemon Company is the one that produces the Pokemon trading card game. You know, because this always falls into the D&D Beyond question of why doesn't Wizards, you know, put a code in for books to put them on D&D Beyond? The answer, they're separate companies, right? It's why, you know, if you buy a physical game from GameStop, you, like, let's say you buy a Nintendo game from GameStop, I don't know why I'm throwing GameStop in there. That's irrelevant. Let's say you buy a physical Nintendo game. It does not come with a code for you to download it from Steam, right? So that would be a similar thing. Like, that's how different they are. Is that, like, the developer, you know, the developer might be willing to do that, but I mean, why would they? So, because they would lose money from it being on Steam. So, but yeah, essentially, it's not a perfect analogy or whatever. So, but in this case, yes. So physical good, if you have the physical goods, you can scan them, turn them into digital goods. It will be launching with what is essentially like the standard set. So whatever is the current rotation of sets. So if you're like me and you got cards from, 20 years ago. Yeah, like cards from 20 years ago. Not likely. There's no way I'm gonna have like base set 1 or jungle to be able to be uploaded into that. And you know what? I'm fine with that. That's okay. That's okay to me. In more Pokemon news, Pokemon Unite released on mobile today. So you are able to play on Nintendo Switch and on mobile. It does so you are able to link your account between the two, so that way it has, you know, cross-platform progression, cross-play. So along with it, there was a balance patch. There were some nerfs. There were a lot of buffs for Pokemon that are still kind of like Charizard. Big notable ones were Greninja and Wigglytuff got nerfed. Blastoise had some bug fixes that ended up resulting in kind of a nerf. Slowbro got nerfed again for some inexplicable reason. It also introduced some new items. So held items, it includes choice specs, I think. I think that's what it is. Sharp claw, I think is what it is. Oh, geez. Something claw. Hang on. We're gonna look it up. Pokemon Unite new items. Razor Claw. That's what. Okay, so choice specs, weakness policy, and Razor Claw. So weakness policy pulls from the theme of it in the base games, where if you take damage, you get a damage buff, and the more you take damage, the bigger the buff is when you take damage. Hopefully that made sense. Razor Claw is when you use a move, which is like special abilities. Your next basic attack is gets like a damage buff. And choice specs is when you use a special ability and you hit with it, you get like a damage buff. So weakness policy, unclear. Little difficult. It's very difficult to kind of figure out how good it is because it's so weird. The other two, pretty good. Now, with the caveat that some Pokemon benefit from it better than others. There's a whole website based on that, so it all depends on like what the scaling of their moves are, because it's not at all very clear within the game, and not all Pokemon like. So it's not like in the games where it's not like in the mainline games where it all works off of like one damage formula. It's using the example of Venusaur and Gengar. They both get Sludge Bomb. They might have different ways of calculating Sludge Bomb damage. So just keep that in mind. Speaking of which, Venusaur did get a buff for Giga Drain and Leaf Storm, which I'm a fan of that build. So it's not a great build, but I enjoy it. Got some pretty significant buffs there. So that's neat. Also, new features. There's a squad feature, so it's basically like guilds or clans, if you're familiar with that. You are not limited to just being in one. You can be in as many different ones as you want. So it's basically like communities. This allows you to like meet up with other people, form groups for matches and chat. Revamped UI, and some new graphical elements. A little bit of extra polish on the UI. Kind of really feels like that the Switch version they released was like an open beta. Was like a very late open beta. Whole bunch of new costumes and cosmetics. The new season is all like space themed. So if you get a battle pass, like, or you get lucky, it's like so it's a spacesuit, like an astronaut with a bubble helmet suit for Gengar, which we can see on the slide. It's very cute. So also a lot of like, I don't know how to describe this, but like Pokemon Unite combatant centric uniforms for the, so it's got like athletic wear and very like bold contrasting colors, and like sweatbands or trainer caps and things. So it's weird in like the Pokemon dressing up like the Pokemon trainers. It's odd, but it's great. Like they look really good. So, and then perhaps the most interesting thing about the release is, depending on what level you are and whether you've done certain quests or not, you can get up to 3. They are called super item enhancers. Now, item enhancers are what you use to like increase the power level of your held items. And it costs progressively more and more of them to level up higher and higher levels. So your held items can go from level 1 to level 30. So a super item enhancer, you use it, and it's just a level 30 boost for that item, and it's permanent. So that would be good in and of itself. Now, what I did not expect, and I'm very pleased with, is if you use it on an item that you've already used item enhancers on, it will refund the item enhancers back to you. So it really means, like, you don't have to sit there and be like, well, I mean, I really like this one item, and I use it all the time, Buddy Barrier, but I've already invested so many item enhancers into it, and it's level 20. I would rather use this on, like, a level 1 and not waste them. And now it's like, well, it's not a waste, because I get them back, and I can spend them on something else. So I dig that. That's, like, it for a game that has been touted as having, like, pay to win policies and being anti-consumer. That is actually a very consumer friendly move. So I wonder if that was in response to some criticism for that. So yeah, that is Pokemon Unite. I did sort of update and I set it up on my iPad. I got in just to do some, like, item management stuff. I haven't actually played a match on iPad to see how the touch controls are. I'm still a little weirded out by the thought of playing it with touch controls. So we'll see. I might do some, like, quick matches and stuff, just to try and get a feel for it. See if I like it better than playing it on Switch or not. One thing I will note is that it keeps telling me that I have a really bad internet connection when, like, I'm sitting right next to the router. So I don't know what that's about, but apparently it's a pretty common thing from what I understand. All right. Next up, Phasmophobia's 1-year anniversary. There's a big event going on in Phasmophobia. Updates include there are some minor like bug fixes, but it also includes now an offline single player mode. So if it's just you, like, you don't have to, like, if you're just playing solo, you don't have to connect to the server. So that's good. Like, it means that, you know, if you only play solo for whatever reason, because you are far braver than most, it means that you won't have to worry about, like, server stability for your game. So, and as you can see, for those that are watching live, the sort of ready area is all decked out with, like, big balloons and disco lights and a big banner and everything. There is also supposedly another update coming in October. So that'll be very, very exciting. And then finally, there's a Nintendo Direct happening on the 23rd. So tomorrow, if you're watching this live, or possibly today, if you're listening to the audio version, it's happening at 6 p.m. Eastern time. So it's not the usual 3 p.m. or noon. They're deciding to do it a little bit later. This Direct is going to focus mainly on games releasing this winter for Nintendo Switch. So upcoming titles. Unclear as to whether Breath of the Wild 2 may be in there or not. I think last they said they were trying to shoot for March, maybe, or just spring 2022. So we'll see. I'm very excited. You know, it's always nice to get new information. Excuse me. And I mean, so here's what we'll likely see. We're likely going to see Pokemon Legends Arceus and the Diamond and Pearl remakes. There was something. Oh, we're going to see Metroid Dread. Although, well, winter. Those are coming out in the fall. So this might be post Pokemon and Metroid. Who knows? I mean, you know, I wouldn't put it past Nintendo to just be like, oh, also, here's a trailer for Metroid Prime 4. You know, that game that we announced 4 years ago. And after like, I don't know, a year or two of development, completely scrapped and had to start over with a different developer. So who knows? Who knows? But we may see something about regarding Zelda. I don't want to get people all riled up about it and then come at me if it doesn't. So I'm just saying, we could, we may not. All right. That is going to wrap up our quickfire news this week. So let's get into the Wild Beyond the Witchlight. All right. Now, I will preface this by saying I have not gotten to take as deep of a look into the book as I would have liked to in preparation for the podcast. It came out yesterday, so there wasn't a whole lot of time. But I did peruse through some of the stuff. So, some of the things that they have. So, character options. One of the things that first stuck out to me was the first thing that I wanted to look at was, what did they do for fairies? So they keep fairies in the book. On the one hand, well, no, it isn't on the one hand. They're kind of just not as exciting. Like, they were just weird in the Unearthed Arcana. Like, they did some weird stuff to have it be like, oh, well, you know, you're like an inch tall, but like for combat purposes, we don't want to do that. So you're just small size and you can just fit using fey passages and everything. You can fit through spaces that like a creature that's only an inch tall can fit through. This, they get rid of that entirely. It's, you're just small size. And then you do get fairy magic. So I like that. Like, that's a neat thing. It's Druidcraft, Fairy Fire, and Enlarge Reduce. I think those are all stuff that like Pixies get. Maybe not Enlarge Reduce, but that's keeping with how they handle Pixies like in past editions. That said, you know, Enlarge Reduce isn't very exciting if you're reducing. And then they give you Flight, but they tacked on the restriction of you can't use it if you're wearing medium or heavy armor. This has gone back and forth. You know, me personally, I don't think it's that bad of a restriction. However, I also don't see unrestricted fly speed being that much of a problem. So, like, I think it's, unnecessary to have the restriction. But I also, you know, am not super bothered by it. But yeah, it's just the fact that Wizards, once again, has resisted any attempt to work outside of having player characters be small or medium size. Like, they just won't do it. And I don't know. I don't know if it's just they don't want to get into the hassle of, like, having to do weird damage calculations or damage conversions. So yeah, I'm not sure. Because, like, the whole thing is, like, a lot of tiny creatures, they deal, like, 1 point of damage. So that causes quite a number of issues if you're building a player character that is focused on physical combat. So, like, thematically, it might make sense, you know, for you to deal, like, 1 point of damage, maybe plus strength or something. But at the same time, it means, like, you really don't ever pick, like, you don't ever, you know, pick, like, a barbarian or fighter or something. Because you just can't, like, you have to use finesse weapons then. Or it's just everybody picks rogue, and then, like, you're just sneak attacking all the time. Which feels odd. So there's that. You know, it's fine. I think, honestly, they're a little boring. Like, they could have, you know, done maybe something else, but And then we have the Harengon, which are the rabbit folk. These look largely unchanged from the Unearthed Arcana. One of the things is that you get your choice of being medium or small. Now, one of the things in 5th edition is that there are currently, aside from like a single feat that's in Xanathar's guide, there are no benefits to being small size. There's only a penalty. So that largely, and also like if you're not going to use heavy weapons, then it just becomes it's an either or. And in which case, like, that's fine, to make it a choice. But if you're small size, technically you have disadvantage when you're wielding heavy weapons. So, that could potentially be an issue. But, it's whatever. Yeah, again, the question is it going to come up that often? Or you could also... Yeah, it just feels like it'd be better if they coded something into the rules that also gave a benefit for being small. So, like, if you're going to have a hindrance like that, even if it's a small benefit to counterbalance that. So that way, then it's just not like if you're thinking, like, if you're going to play in a very combat heavy game, you might look at the two and be like, well, why would I ever pick being small? Like, why? When you could just be medium and then just say, like, you're 4 feet tall, like dwarves do. Because dwarves are medium size. But they are traditionally, like, much shorter than humans are. So, they also have, some custom backgrounds. They have character traits, which are the stuff that normally applies to a background, but this is like to, have like a generic list for the Feywild and apply it to any background, or to mix and match. So I think that's nice. I would love to see more of that, because I think that's something. I would also love it if 5th edition leaned more into actually using these background features. And then also there's a Feywild trinkets table. I love the trinkets tables. I think they're great. I'm super glad. It's got some really interesting and cool stuff in here. Like, it ranges from cookie cutter shaped like a unicorn to, a crystal orb, that allows an elf who holds it to fall asleep. To a sprite skull covered in ink fingerprints. A fake 3-dragon anti-card with a fairy dragon painted on it. 8-inch long glass ant figurine. Just an empty bag labeled candy. You get a candy bag wrapper. It's just, some of these are very magical and whimsical, and then some are just like, yeah, you get somebody's trash. Like, it's actually trash. Set of false wooden teeth. Here's a cool one. So a Pixie's a winter jacket lined with fox fur is you get essentially a very, very tiny set of, like, a very tiny baby jacket. So, so here's one that I'm surprised they didn't put this at 100, but it's a 100-sided die the size of a plum cut from coal. Like, that's, when you take meta stuff like that, you put that at 100. So, like, if you roll a 100 on the D100, you just get a D100. That's your item. It's very meta. I like little touches like that. They give recommendations on how to start the adventure, whether your characters are from the Feywild or whether they were deposited there. So there are 5 chapters. The first starts at the Witchlight Carnival, and they talk a little bit about the owners, Mr. Witch and Mr. Light. who are both Shatterkai. So like we thought, so this is the clown and what we thought was the hobgoblin, like on the cover, like the jester and the hobgoblin. Turns out they're both just Shatterkai. And the items that they have are artifacts that directly involve the carnival itself. Very cool. It's the pocket watch. So the pocket watch is a little weird. It has some features. I don't know how I feel about them. That are, they're mainly like role-playing quirks, I guess. So like the pocket watch is sort of like taking on the Santa mantle. Is it causes you to gain 30 pounds. And then it also it requires you to eat 8 times the amount of food and drink during the day, like over the course of a day. Why? Who knows? Who knows? So yeah, here we go. And while carrying the watch, the creature attuned to it can cast Firebolt, Invisibility, or Message as an action. And after the invisibility spell is cast, you roll a d8 on a 3 or 8. The watch can't be used again to cast it until the next dawn. And also, if your attunement to the watch ends, is that extra 30 pounds that you gained vanishes. But yeah, if you're attuned to the watch, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's like a time thing, that you're just super hungry and thirsty. So drinking 8 times the normal amount of water each day. So like, just think about this, is like if the current rule of thumb is to drink 8 glasses of water a day, that is 64 glasses of water. That's a lot. That you might as well just be walking around with like pitchers and just like, let's see, 2 cups to a pint, 2 pints to a quart. So it's 4 cups to a quart, 4 quarts to a gallon. So it's 16 cups to a gallon. So you're talking 32 gallons of water a day. That's a lot. That's a lot you gotta consume. So thankfully, I mean, this is this is attuned to one of the owners of the carnival, Mr. So on the slide here, Mr. Witch, who is the Shatterkai with the pocket watch and the top hat and the finery. The other one, Mr. Light, it's a weather vane that acts like a wand. So, and it talks about like when the carnival's in session, you have an hour die and then you have a mood die. And what they are is, I think they're D8s, and what you do is like every hour that passes, you advance the D8, and like certain events happen on certain hours. So it's like on hour 1, there's like an opening ceremony, and like hour 3, there's like a main event. So it's like use a way to track progress over the course of a night, because then when the morning comes, carnival gets packed up, and they they close up shop for the day, and then when night falls, they open back up again. Now the mood apparently also affects things, and so the goal is the goal of the carnival is for everybody to have a really good time. So depending on actions that you take, and things that happen, it may push the mood from one side of the track to the other. And like, as people are cheery, like that affects how the carnival appears, where like, the carnival staff are, very upbeat, friendly, and everything. And like the music's happy and uplifting, and stuff is bright, cheery, wonderful, whimsical. And like, if the mood takes a turn for the worse, that's directly reflected in, the carnival staff might be a little more sullen. You might go from let's say you might go from Fantasyland to the Haunted Mansion. The music starts to get the music shifts from major keys to minor keys, things like that. And ultimately the mood is used to progress the adventure. In which case, then you go to the 3 regions in this area: hither, thither, and yon. And you're sort of tasked with solving mysteries of things that happen. So I've only read a little bit of hither, namely the Soggy Court, which is a court of bullywugs, which in the Forgotten Realms are really nasty, awful, like frog people. But in this one, they sort of strip that history away, and it's just frog people. Now, why they don't include bullywug among the sort of lineage types that you can play as, I don't know. That would have been great. There is a distinct lack of, like, there's rules on DM's Guild for playing a Gripply, but like it's for a very like weird specific kind of one shot. And it seems weird that we have like lizards and like lizard folk, rabbit folk, turtle folk, cat folk, bird folk, 2 kinds of bird folk. We don't have frog folk. Technically, we don't have dog folk either, so that's or fox folk, which is a thing that is usually in high demand. But this is a whole court of bullywugs, and it's very focused on like political intrigue and gossip and everything, and they make it a point to say like, these are not the bullywugs of the Forgotten Realms; these are the bullywugs of the Feywild. So they're not, like if there's a commotion, like they're gonna come running, but they want tea to be spilt. They're not looking to start a fight. Like they want to know the deets, what's going on. Like they want to be all up in everybody's business, finding out the gossip, and all sorts of like court intrigue and everything, and masquerades and costume balls and stuff. There are stats for bullywug knights that are lawful good, that are just like bullywug paladins. I love it. It's great. And they're like, and because it's the Feywild, like literally knights in shining armor. So I haven't gotten to the other locations yet, but the overall story. Now, I'm going to try and keep this non-spoilery. Is like most realms in the Feywild, this realm is governed by an archfey, and something has happened, and it seems like there is another group that has taken charge. So that's and your goal is to kind of figure things out, because it directly impacts the carnival. So there's that going on. This book does give some ways of like there's always an out for not solving things with violence. Sometimes it takes a little bit of not trickery, but like I guess a little bit of like puzzle solving. It's not right. That's not the right term for it. But it's just, you might have to do a little bit of thinking to figure that part out. So let's take a look at some of the magic items. So Bobbing Lily Pad creates magical vehicle is 10-foot diameter leaf that floats on water. That can also propel it across the land. So it can go across land, on top of the water and through the air. It has a flying, walking, and swimming speed of 20 feet, and it can hover. So yeah, it's basically like a cart. So it moves a little bit slower than walking speed. But it's sort of like a Tensor's floating disc, but it's a magical lily pad. Chromatic Rose is you gain resistance to the damage type based on the rose's color. If you would take more than 10 points of damage, it disintegrates and you take no damage instead. As an action, you can essentially do like a dragon breath. Oh, and they are all literally associated with the chromatic dragon types. So yeah, you can essentially destroy the rose to do a dragon breath effect. Cloak of Many Fashions. So this is a common magic item. We've seen this before, but you can use an action or use a bonus action to so it remains a cloak and its weight remains the same, but you can make it look however you want. It doesn't gain any new properties or whatever. It's just a visual effect. The Dread Helm, Dust of Corrosion, the Eldritch Staff, which is so this is nice for monks. You can use it to turn invisible and teleport yourself. So it's like you Misty Step and turn invisible. Or you can expend charges to just deal lightning damage when you hit somebody with it. There is an artifact level Cauldron that is sort of related to the plot, so I'm not going to divulge those details. Orb of Direction, Instrument of Scribing. These are both common magic items. Pipe of Smoke Monsters. That's another magic item. Common magic item. It is it's like a smoking pipe. And you can use it to have the smoke take... It's like Gandalf's little, he makes like all sorts of weird little smoke effects while sitting there with Bilbo. Pixie Dust. Pixie Dust is you sprinkle it on somebody and they can fly. They can fly, they can fly. They can fly, they can fly, they can fly. Pole of Collapsing, so it's a 10-foot pole that you can just like shook into a 1-foot long rod for storage. Scissors of Shadow Snipping is you can snip a creature's shadow away, which turns it into so it turns it into like a shadow creature under your control, but it's fey instead of undead, and it doesn't kill people if it drains their strength. That's nifty. There is a legendary greatsword called Snicker-Snack. Now, it is a specific Vorpal sword. It ignores resistance to slashing damage. Let's see. If you do not have proficiency with greatswords while attuned to Snicker-Snack, you gain proficiency with greatswords, and you can use your charisma modifier instead of your strength modifier. This is made for paladins and warlocks, folks. Also bards. A bard wielding a Snicker-Snack. Man. It's chaotic good. It is chaotic good. It craves the destruction of evil dragons and urges you to seek out them and slay them. Yeah. So the reason why Snicker-Snack is in this book is because this book also has Jabberwocks. So there is a greatsword or a longsword called Steel, which is you can use an action to cast Revivify from it. That's really good. Talking Dolls. Wand of Scowls and Wand of Smiles. They, fans of Critical Role have seen Wand of Smiles before. It's basically you spend a charge and like you can force people to smile. Wand of Scowls does the opposite. Makes people frown. If you expend the last charge, you roll a d20, and on a 1, the wand transforms into the opposite type. And Woodcutter's Axe, which deals more damage to plants or plant creatures. So yeah, I mentioned Jabberwocks. Jabberwocks are in the book. They're a type of dragon. They look weird. They look real weird. It's like somebody took some sort of deep sea fish, like long sort of deep sea, almost like viper fish or something, long sinewy body, gave it very, very thin sinewy wings and legs. But it's got, big sort of, I mean, when you think of deep sea fish and you think of like the big giant eyeballs that are almost luminescent, that's what it's got. It's also, it doesn't appear to have fangs so much as like beaver teeth. It's very unsettling. Uncanny Tracker, it's got regeneration, confusing burble. So, taking from the Lewis Carroll poem. So burbling is a mechanic that it has. Fiery gaze. So instead of having a breath weapon, it shoots lasers out of its eyes. Oh. So yeah, giant dragonflies make a return to 5th edition, giant snails. So again, we get sort of the royal and knightly bullywugs. We get Campestries, which are happy-go-lucky mushroom-like creatures. They are captivated by music, though they can't distinguish a well-played performance from a bad one. They don't care if you're good or bad at making music. They just like music. If anyone plays an instrument or sings in the creature's vicinity, they will happily sing along, each in an obnoxiously nasal falsetto as they dance and caper around whoever is making the music. Yeah, I don't know the context of why why they have step, like if they're intended to be like a familiar type, maybe. They're not, they only have a speed of 5 feet. They got 2 hit points. They challenge rating 0. You don't get, you have 10 experience points. So like these are on the range of like a regular toad. Their only attack is to like headbutt things for 1 point of damage. They look very cute. All I can think of is Toad from Super Mario. If like an obnoxiously nasally falsetto, looks like a little mushroom person. Except Toad's whole shtick is that he can't jump, but he can move really fast. So, and then there's also like a swarm of Campestries. I don't know what would ever cause them to swarm, but they function like a regular swarm, and they are a bit of a threat. But they're really cute and charming. It's great. Also, they can release spores, like a 5-foot radius of spores that can go around corners. No effect on constructs, elementals, plants, or undead, but it puts people to so not puts people to sleep, but like incapacitates and halves their speed. So, yeah, there's a lot of charming little things in this book. But as I said, I haven't gotten through a lot of the chapters yet. I just know Hither seems to revolve around this sort of Bullywug court, and playing favor with the current king of the Bullywugs. And it also provides like alternate paths for stuff that happens. lot of intrigue going on there. But like it could, and you can really play it up as sort of like an Alice in Wonderland type thing. And I think that's what this book wants to encourage, is like, because there's some pretty dark stuff that you can do with the Feywild, but I think this is leaning more into sort of the weird, right? And yeah, I've seen a lot of criticism of like, because like it'll be mentioned that like this adventure has, to borrow from Undertale, like you can go the pacifist route. And a lot of people were talking down on that. And it's like, listen, if you want to play that type of game, like violence is still an option. It's just putting more of an emphasis on, if you don't want to pursue that path, here are some suggestions for how you can do that. And it's like, I don't understand why anybody would be down on having more options in a game. So, meh. That's what I got to say about that. Meh. Yeah, it's never bad to have more options on different ways to play. Or for suggestions for dungeon masters on how to run different types of games. It's like, I can guarantee that a lot of people complaining will never dungeon master because they're cowards. So, yeah. Yeah, there's some spicy salt. It's like paprika salt mixed in there, a little bit of spice. Because quite frankly, I'm tired of it. I'm tired of people complaining about having different options. And Wizards doing stuff to advance the game in interesting and new directions. Because, like, if you wanted the same game rehashed like 30 different years or whatever, like, go back to playing Skyrim. There. Okay. There's also role-playing cards, printable images. There's a section called Stage Frights Lines. I missed where that's relevant, but I like that. They also include story trackers in the book. That's not something that adventures have done before, so I appreciate that. Normally, like, you have to get third-party products to have stuff like that. So yeah. All in all, I'm excited. I will likely be picking up a physical copy this weekend. Still haven't quite decided if I want the alt cover or not. But we'll see. So, I think I might take a closer look at it when I get the physical copy. But I'm very excited. Who knows? Maybe, just maybe, if we're able to get on a bit of a rhythm with my current D&D group, the Tales of Jamora group. Who knows? Maybe we may decide to do a little Feywild adventure to wrap up some plot points there after our current arc. I don't know, but yeah. All in all, I think this will be a fun adventure. And starts off at level 1, I believe. So once again, you start at level 1. It's nice to see a low-level adventure on another plane. But, at the same, like, I know why Wizards doesn't do high-level adventures, because, like, it's difficult. So, at some point, it would be nice to see something a little more higher level. All right, that is going to wrap up the deep dive. So let's do quest log really quick, and then we'll wrap up the show. All right, so I am happy to report that I did, in fact, finish Horizon Zero Dawn and the Frozen Wilds DLC. Highly recommend that game. If you've got a PS4, PS5, or if you have a PC capable of running it, it is available on Steam, which is where I played it. Definitely recommend it. It's weird for me to play that. So, like, that and Breath of the Wild kind of were in like a similar headspace when they first came out. So it's weird for me to, like, having just finished that, go back to playing Breath of the Wild. A lot of similarities between the two. Although Horizon kind of takes there's a little more involvement in the story. And it's very, very story focused. Yeah, I mean, it was a big inspiration for a lot of, like, that and Breath of the Wild were a big inspiration for a lot of stuff in Gamora. So I was excited about that. A lot of really neat aesthetics. I liked a lot of the combat systems. You know, the story was pretty good. I certainly enjoyed it. I certainly thought it had depth to it. The only thing that I didn't like, and I think I mentioned this last week, is occasionally you'll be presented with dialogue options that key to empathy, intelligence, or might, or force, power, whatever, represented by like a fist, a brain, or a heart. There does not seem to be any rationale. Like, it doesn't seem to have any effect on the conversation whatsoever. Like, it might get different dialogue, like you might get a different response, but in the end, like, it's the same. So that was, like, at that point, like, why introduce that choice? If it's not going to be a meaningful choice, outside of, like, you know, an NPC might respond differently, but at the end of the day, like, it doesn't change the status of a quest or anything. So but it's a minor nitpick. I ended up just choosing empathy almost every time. Everything worked out fine. So, and yeah, definitely recommend it. So the goal for this week is simply to play a board game. It's something, haven't done it in a while. You know, my wife and I like playing board games. For those that are watching live, this is a picture of Settlers of Catan. It will not be that board game. I do not enjoy Settlers of Catan. I haven't really enjoyed it since college, when I was very early in the game. I ended up getting surrounded by other people, and so it was impossible for me to expand, and therefore I could not actually, like, it was impossible for me to accrue enough points to win the game. And so I ended up playing a World of War. I ended up doing a Karazhan raid in World of Warcraft at the time. This was 2008, so, like, Karazhan was still relatively new-ish. Yeah, ended up doing a Karazhan raid and finished the raid before that game was done. And I said, just skip my turns. Like, nothing. Like, I'm not going to trade with anybody because nothing benefits me. There is no way for me to win. Because I think even development cards, like, couldn't get me enough points. So, because, like, I couldn't get longest road. I couldn't build outside of my 2 initial areas. So anyway, so just that game left enough of a bad taste. So it will not be Settlers of Catan. Likely what it will be is we've got a lot of, like, food related board games. We've got a couple food truck related board games. We have one where, like, you're building a little town. It's called Little Town, I think. We have Evolution, which is always fun. And, you know, and if it's something where if I end up playing solo, I have One Deck Dungeon that I can play. It's got, like, a little campaign mode. So yeah, the goal is to play a physical board game. So Digital Talisman, I'm not going to count. So yeah, that's the goal for next week, is just play a board game. So, all right, that is going to wrap up this episode. Thank you all for joining me. Thank you for listening. If you want to see more content from 8-Bit Adventures, you can check out my stuff over at 8-bitadventures.com. Over there you can find comics, artwork, VODs of streams, the podcast, and more. if you would like to help support that content, please consider becoming a patron over at patreon.com/8bitadventures. I would like to give a big thank you to all of the current patrons. Thank you for your continued support and for just, helping to keep the lights on for a lot of these projects. Finally, the opening theme of the podcast is One Up by Professor Shy Guy. You can find his work over at professorshyguy.bandcamp.com. And that's it. The show's over. You're still here. So again, thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate your support. As always, have fun, happy gaming, and enjoy your pie cake. Stay happy, stay healthy, stay safe.